post-COVID ethical practices should have gone higher. How do you convey it in the most transparent manner to the prospective students and the parents who are going to invest, I would say, a fortune? We were able to, through ethical communication, being transparent, being there in their shoes and telling them that we hear you out. In these sales enablement documents also, there are a lot of non-ethical, or I would say unethical practices, wherein because the marketing team, wants their brand to be more visible out there, they'll just ask the salesperson to, talk about this.
Welcome to another episode of the Great Lakes podcast. We bring to you industry leaders, change makers and innovators who are redefining the way we think about business, leadership and marketing. Today we are diving into a topic that often gets overlooked in the mainstream discussions: ethical and responsible marketing in high-stakes industries like education. We are not just selling a product or service, we are shaping futures, influencing life-altering decisions and dealing with a high level of trust and accountability. Joining me today is someone who has built his career navigating this space with thoughtfulness and integrity. I am thrilled to welcome Jibbi James, a proud Great Lakes Gurgaon alumnus who is currently working as a Director of Marketing and Strategy and also the advisor to the CEO at Navamind. After completing his MBA, Jibbi went on to working in marketing leadership roles at top educational institutions including ISB and Great Lakes Gurgaon. His extensive experience in education gives him a unique perspective on how to balance business goals with ethical responsibilities. Okay, so let's get started. Welcome to the podcast, Jibbi, and I'd like to start with your journey. Like, how did you transition into marketing right after your Great Lakes? Because you have been in the education industry for a very long time. So why don't you begin with that?
I think it's I would say a very relevant question, not just in my context, but there are a lot many people out there who would be thinking, I have done an engineering or I have done a BCom. How can I transition into, let's say, a completely different domain without even having an experience? Right. So for me, my stepping stone itself, I would say, into marketing was from Great Lakes.
Okay.
So I completed my marketing from Great Lakes. Before that, I was working for Infosys, IT for 4 years. I figured out IT is not my cup of tea.
Okay.
And I just had that in my mind that I wanted to use the creative side which I had, which just sitting behind the desk won't help me with. And post that, Great Lakes happened and I completed my PGPM in marketing.
Which
and
year?
Sorry?
When did you graduate?
2016.
2016.
Yeah, so my batch was 2015, 2016.
Okay.
So it's a very, I would say, a beautiful story behind me getting into marketing.
Yeah.
So our placements were going on for Great Lakes, and 3 to 4 of my I would say companies which were lined up. My interviews were still pending. For one, the final round was also over. But then we had our college's Founders Day, and by God's grace, the prize distribution was happening, and Mr. Mohan Lakhamraju was giving away the awards. And there were quite a few times that I was on the stage receiving the awards. And that is when our then Dean, Dr. Himadri Das, he reached out to me and said, are you interested in a marketing role with Great Lakes? And he knew that, my few of my final rounds were going on with other companies. And he said that Mohan was actually impressed by the way you were receiving accolades, and would you want to get into marketing, since you also wanted to get into marketing?
Okay. Were you part of any marketing club or something like that?
I used to participate in everything, be it like in extracurriculars, be it sports, be it dancing, be it singing, academics as well. So that way, I would say I was a bit familiar with everyone. And I think maybe that helped me get noticed as well. And that has been my journey, where even after I completed my graduation, to the juniors I have kept telling them that, it's not just about the academics. Whatever passion you have, whatever you've been doing, whatever you like doing, keep doing that. You don't know when and at what particular moment that can come in handy, and that can help you land a job like me.
Okay,
Right.
so like moving into marketing for an education industry was not, let's say, your choice per se. It was not a decision to move into marketing for education, but I would want to understand, like, even after Great Lakes, you worked for other educational institutes, right? So what drew you towards marketing in the education industry particularly?
Right. So now, when you talk about marketing, initially my goal was I wanted to change my domain, or my function
From IT to marketing.
from IT to marketing. And then I was like, okay, initially whatever I get, I'll get an exposure and an experience. But then that I was getting with a few other companies also, for which interviews were lined up, or I was in the final interview process with them. But then something struck me, and it was like, it is something which is to do with your feelings, experience, and emotions. It's not like a physical product which you can show it to somebody and tell them, hey, this is a thing, these are its features, and would you like to buy this, and these are this is the price announced.
Right.
And I was like, I was driven, I would say, more by values that time. And I still am. But yeah, what I'm trying to say is, for me, that emotional quotient, wherein I could talk about things the right way and in a more transparent manner, by sharing an experience rather than selling a dream, so that I could very transparently and ethically show somebody that this is meant for you, or this may not be meant for you, because from person to person the story and their perspective changes.
Right.
And that is how I chose education marketing. Then we moved to ISB, and I continued in the education sector because I started loving and liking what I was doing.
Right. And one thing you very rightly mentioned was being very clear in your communication, because my next question was this only. So marketing for education is not like marketing for a product like shoes or smartphones, right? It's not where you just want the customer to buy a product. It's mostly about helping them taking their life-changing decisions, and more or less their emotional stakes are also involved in this. So do you think marketing for education is more about counseling than just sales?
So now, if I have to give you an example, if I want to buy a car, I can just go to the showroom, I can look at the car, I can look at the features, I can do my research. Okay, if I want the fastest car, I'll do the research, I'll go and search about that, I'll have a test drive, and I'll check the interiors and everything. And if I love it, it's as per my expectation, I can go ahead and purchase it. But then education, when it comes to education, it's more about the experience, and it's more about your, I would say, lifetime value that you get, a long term benefit which you will get out of it. And it's not something like I just quickly finished my MBA and then I can do whatever I want. No, there is a planning behind it, there is a time behind it, there is an effort which you put in to figure out which one would be the best for me. Same you do for, I would say, physical entities as well, like a car. But then you cannot physically touch your education system. You cannot say that, okay, I have seen the campus, it looks really great, let me go ahead and join. It has these many facilities. Oh, swimming pool, oh, they have badminton, oh, they have this. Okay, I think this is the right place for me, I can go ahead and do it. So that's not how it works with educational institutions.
Because more than feature, it's more about how this particular thing is gonna help you in the long run. And plus, I feel when you're buying a car, you are more or less aware of the features, or the salesperson will let you know about the features. But when it comes to education, what I feel is most of the students are very confused. Once I get into MBA, how this one particular year gonna be like, 1 year or 2 year MBA, whatever it is, and what are some decisions that I need to take during this period. And there are things that I am also not very sure of, whether I would want to go for marketing, whether I would want to go for analytics or whatsoever. So this is where I want the help from a marketer or the salesperson to help me with how this particular course is gonna help me with what my goals are, or even if I don't have my goals very clear, how can you or the college would help me decide where should I pursue?
So I would say it starts with the vision, mission statement of the educational institution itself,
Mhm.
right? How they lay the foundation of being a responsible institution, an ethical institution, and what is it that they are going to offer in terms of experience to its students,
Mhm.
right? I can talk about the quality of education, right? Okay, let me just rephrase what I said. Now, different people would want to join a particular educational institution because of various reasons. Somebody may be just looking for getting a placement.
Mhm.
Somebody may be an entrepreneur and is just looking for networking.
Networking opportunities.
Somebody has no idea about what they want to do,
Hmm.
right? For example, me,
Okay.
I was into IT,
Hmm.
right? I figured out people take different time to figure out, in their
Mhm.
lives
Mhm.
what they are meant to do or what they want to do.
Right.
I realized it after 4 years working in IT.
Hmm.
And that is how I made a move to do an MBA, and I did what I did. So that may be, I would say, a driving factor for some people.
Mhm.
For some people, they just need the brand name.
Hmm.
I have my own business. Even if I don't do an MBA, I'm fine with it. I just need a logo of a good brand
Mhm.
on my CV that I have done it from here. That's it. I just want people to know that, yeah, I am an MBA.
Hmm.
People may just do it for that sake.
Hmm.
And then there is a group of people who may want to do because of the learnings they are going to get out of it.
Right.
Right. So as I said, it keeps varying from person to person. And that is where it becomes very, very important for educational institutions to very, in depth define what it means for each of these category,
Mhm.
right? And first, in terms of the quality of education which you provide. Second will be in terms of, I would say, the facilities which the campus has.
Hmm.
Third can be in terms of the career transformation opportunities which they will get. I don't know if I mentioned, but I would keep it at the second point, the faculties,
Yeah.
right? The quality of faculties, matters a lot.
I think that should be the first and foremost point.
Definitely, right? Because you may not have heard about a particular institution,
Hmm.
but your institution can be known by the faculty you have,
Right.
right? So, if let's say I am searching for a faculty member or a particular institution, I would go and definitely check the faculty members who come and teach there,
Hmm.
right? So,
And
yes,
where have they taught before?
it may not definitely be,
Mhm.
but in some of the cases, yes.
Hmm.
Why? Because it's not just about where they have taught. It can also be about what kind of researches they have done
Right.
or what kind of contributions they have made to the education industry.
Hmm.
It can be like, it varies, across, I would say, domains. But yes, how would you get to know whether a particular a professor or a lecturer or a faculty member is of top-notch quality,
Mhm.
right? Either you may define them by saying that, oh, they have these many years of experience
Hmm.
in this particular field,
Hmm.
or you can say that they have, these many experience in the corporate side of it,
Mhm.
plus, the theory side of it,
Right.
the teaching side of it, and they form an amalgam of
Hmm.
both of these
Hmm.
and provide an experiential learning opportunity for you.
Right. Right.
Right. So, yeah. So, I'm just putting it in a different way, but yeah, I'm being from a marketing side, I'm just using these kind of words.
No,
But
makes sense. Makes sense. So, since you have been marketing for education industry for a very long time now, so would you like to share any example where your marketing communication or how you market for any particular institute has made a impact on student decision making?
so I'll come to a point, or I would say the time from COVID,
Okay.
because it is very important to talk about it, because post COVID, a lot of scenarios have changed. And now, whatever we look at, I would say we divided into pre-COVID times and post-COVID times. So post-COVID, I would say that ethical practices should have gone higher, because it's not about just the health of a person anymore. It's also the life taking decision. It's also something which is going to impact their lives in a longer term. Because now they are not just looking from a perspective of getting quality education or a quality service or a quality product, but they're also looking from a perspective where is it going to impact my health as well. So they are talking about multiple aspects at the same time. Earlier they might not have been thinking about health, or they might not have been giving that much importance to the health factor. So if I have to give an example from my experience, there was a time during COVID where I was in the northern side of India. I was taking an information session for one of the institutions which I was representing. And the next day there was going to be one more session where prospective students would have come, their parents would have come, and we would have interacted and given them the information. But just one day before that, we got a news that we have to fly back, and it'll be a lockdown. So yeah, we ultimately had to just pack our bags, come back to our I would say hometowns, not hometowns specifically, our base location. Hometowns anyway, we could not go because there were travel restrictions, and because that time I was officially traveling, so I had to go back to my base location. And then came the most important challenge, because that was the admission season going on. And because of lockdowns, there were a lot of questions. Students and prospective students were like, will we be able to continue our education? Will we be able to get admission? What will happen? Will we be able to travel to the campus? What happens with all the facilities and resources which would have been available to us on campus? Will we be able to get all those facilities now? Will you reduce the fee? Because now we are not going to use our accommodation. We are not going to use any physical resources. How will you ensure that our quality of education is not impacted in any way? Then the other questions is, how would you ensure seamless learning process? The faculties who we would have gotten in touch with, we would have interacted with them face to face. Now, if you bring everything online, what will happen to that kind of a quality education? If you are,
because when you are on campus, you have access to them like 24/7. You can just walk into the room and get any query solved.
Right. And that is one of the aspects. Like, previously you had asked me a question. I could not answer it completely, but peer learning. Peer learning is really very important in an MBA setup. Like, you have the quality of faculty, your networking, your peer network matters a lot, because most of the time you're going to spend with your batchmates, your classmates. You're going to study with them. You're going to do your project work with them, your assignments with them. You're going to learn from each other's experiences. And if that is not there in that physical setup now anymore, how do you convey it in the most transparent manner to the prospective students and the parents who are going to invest, I would say, a fortune in some cases. In some cases, they might be rich, but then a part of their income, a part of their investment for their kids' education, and in some cases, their own education.
Right. Because in India, I think the most where parents, or I would say anyone, spend is, one thing is your home, second is your car, and maybe even the car comes third, and second thing is your education, which is where you spend the most, and which is, for some cases, a very substantial amount of their income or savings.
So yeah, so that is where, these were the challenges I would say we were facing. And now, how would we try to come up with a solution for this was the first thing, right? So first we had to ensure that we communicated well within the team. Our team as a whole, admissions, marketing, the board members, the management, everybody got together to figure out what is it that can be offered in the best possible manner. We brainstormed about it. What kind of technology we can use. How can we ensure that, their learning experience doesn't get hampered in terms of peer learning, in terms of one-on-ones with their faculty members, right? In terms of usage of resources, or I would say the library accessories and so on, right? Obviously, the facilities won't be available. Let's say the badminton court or the volleyball court, swimming pool, and so on. Those won't be accessible, and that was something which was in no one's control, right? But then I would say we had to tell them that these are certain things which you might be missing out on, but we also had to ensure that we tell them that whatever you are going to miss out on, we will ensure that as soon as things get well and normal, we will ensure that you get multifolds of what you have missed. So we had to ensure by giving them a very, very clear, I would say, structured manner of information, wherein they knew since the beginning what has happened, what can they expect, and how are we going to ensure that your I would say experience doesn't get hampered.
How is very important, because that's what the questions will arise in a prospective students, because you are promising these particular things, and now we know that this is what the actual scenario is. So how you are going to ensure that everything that you are promising will be delivered?
So first thing was, we came up with something known as usually during their onboarding time, if I have to say, they would come, they would physically meet with the alumni and the current students and the faculty, and they will, this is something known as, a day zero for them, or you can even say a month zero. They may even come a month before.
Yeah, we call it term zero.
Right? And they will get used to the environment. Some people even take months to get used to that educational setup, because they are getting into that education after maybe 3, 4, 5 years. So now what we ensured is we set up a digital learning process for them for their first term. Now, in order for us to take them through the first term, we ensured that in term zero itself, we made very clear to them, made them understand what kind of platform we are going to use. Obviously, see, any solution which you provide, there will always be right questions asked, and there will always be, I would say, not so right questions. I would say wrong questions, because now everybody is in a dilemma. Everybody is confused. They want answers to many questions.
Right.
And as responsible marketers, as a responsible institution, it is our job to handle the crisis and answer them in the most transparent manner.
Right.
I have seen educational institutions where they would again, promise them a lot. Let's say, for example, we don't know when things are going to be normal.
Right.
Now, if I just promise them, right now it's April, September you will all be on campus. I'm guaranteeing them. I'm just telling them, September you will be on campus. So you are just losing out on 2 or 3 months. So don't worry about that. You don't have to withdraw your admissions. Right? So this is a very important point which I got reminded of. We gave them an option. If you want, you can withdraw your admission.
Okay. And in fact, term zero is before they have paid the fees, right? Because during term zero, you get to experience what maybe the first term or maybe the following terms are gonna be like, and you haven't yet paid the fees, and you are still experiencing what it is gonna be like. So maybe you have the first hand experience, and now on the basis of this experience, you can take the call if you want to pursue or not.
But so I would say a few, or I would say more than half of them had already paid certain part of the fee. We were like, we have to be transparent. They are going to take a decision which is going to last, in their minds and in their lives for a very long time. This is going to change and shape their careers.
And
so
MBA is probably for most of the cases is the
last course
education that you pursue. So
so that is what we told them. And a few of them, definitely we gave them an option: either you can withdraw or you can defer to the next season, next admission cycle. We introduced a lot of technology. It was like, if you are going online, you'll have to go all out, because you have to ensure that they definitely won't get an experience which is close to, a physical presence, but it has to at least replicate sort of that.
Right. Right.
So yeah, so the way in which we had faculty interactions, the peer learnings, the assignments which we were done, so everything was, put on, the digital side of things. And I would say we were able to, through ethical communication, being transparent, being there in their shoes and telling them that we hear you out, rather than being defensive and saying, hey, no, we won't
Right.
refund,
Right.
we won't do this for you, you have paid the fee now, if you if you withdraw, you won't get another chance, you'll be blacklisted and so on. We could have done that,
Right. Right.
right? But we did not.
Which brings me to a question. In industries where the ticket size is very high, be it education, real estate, healthcare, and so on, the emotional stakes involved are also very higher. So, what are some key responsibilities or key ethics that marketers should have in these particular industries?
First, be transparent, be truthful. See, I know I have led sales and marketing both. So I also know the kind of tactics, I would say, with which a lot of sales representatives use in order to ensure that they convert a lead into a prospect and then ultimately get them to take an admission.
Right.
So sometimes what they do is, even if the mission and vision statement of the institution is being truthful and being transparent, providing quality education, but because they have to reach their targets,
Right.
because they have to ensure that they do certain number of sales in this month, they might just give away, I would say, the
The
value
ethics.
of the organization that they are working for. And the organization or the management may not be able to understand, or may not even know. Now, we anyway have call recordings and so on.
Right.
But then there are a lot of means. Let's say, for example, I'm giving an example of my own cousin brother. When he was looking out for his MBA journey, he got in touch with an institution
Okay.
where they provided a placement stats and everything, a placement report to them, saying that we have 95% placements and so on. And this is, by the way, a hybrid model
Okay.
of program. It's not a full-time program. And so first thing, they released a placement report of that. So I was a little surprised, because in a hybrid kind of a setup, maximum institutions won't guarantee a placement,
Right.
right? Because it's a weekend course or
That
for
was an executive
professionals.
program.
Yes, that was an executive program. So he received it, he showed it to me. I was like, okay, let me go through it. And because I knew that institution, I knew somebody who's working in that institution, I just reached out to that person. I was like, hey, I have this placement report with me, and I don't think that this belongs to this particular program. I think this is for a full-time program. Can you please cross-check? He cross-checked and he said, yes, this is for a full-time program. So because he's my friend, I just told him, see, I don't think you know about it, because I know he works ethically. I told him, maybe you don't know, but this is something which is happening
Right.
from a member of your own team, or separately on WhatsApp. This person is having a communication, right? So even if your management, your team doesn't know about it, there are ways in which you can be unethical just to meet your targets. So yes, being transparent and truthful is the first thing. Second is not making any false promises, and again falls under being truthful, but I would say not amplifying the truth so much that it seems like a lie.
Right.
Right? Let's say, for example, if you don't have that much diversity in your batch, don't say that we have a lot of diversity in our batch. Let's say if you have only 2%, I am just giving an example. If you just have 2% of doctors in your batch, don't say we have 10% of doctors in our batch. Right? Ultimately, what will happen? Let's say this person, prospective candidate, wants to talk to someone who is an alum, right? You will hardly get, people who may be able to talk to this person. You only are digging your own grave. ultimately when that person lands in your campus, that person will see you talked about 10%. I can hardly see 1%. You tricked me into it. And it's not just for that particular moment. When this student of yours becomes an alumnus or alumna,
Yeah, it is for the following batches as well.
they will go out. What is the kind of, I would say, brand ambassadors which you are creating? Your current students and your alumni are your brand ambassadors.
Right.
If you are not setting the right example in front of them, they are not going to make others suffer. And that is why a lot of institutions suffer with this. Whenever they try to reach out to their alumni for any kind of support or assistance in terms of, let's say, interviews or talking or speaking with, prospective candidates, they would just shrug off their shoulders. They'll be like, no, I don't want to. I don't have time. Even though they may have time, but they will not give their time because they know what kind of an experience they went through. Right? Third is giving as much information as possible. It's not about need-based information. It is about me giving you as much information as possible because you are exploring your career opportunities, your MBA opportunities with a particular institution. You may not know what is the right question to be asked,
Right.
but I know what are the right questions and right answers which you should be aware of. Rather than me waiting for you to ask me, hey, what is your placement stats? Or I'm just giving example of placement. It can be what about the kind of faculty which you have? Or what is the kind of career outcome which I can look at? Or, I am an entrepreneur. How can your institution help me in, growing further in my own venture? I am not looking for a placement.
Because you as a marketer are exposed to, a lot of questions from variety of students, and you just culminate a group of set of questions that these are the most highly asked questions from all the, and these are something that we should be communicating ourselves rather than to the student asking us.
So even, so there's something known as a sales enablement document. Usually it's between the marketing team and the sales team, where the marketing team will provide the sales team, the pointers wherein, they can talk about these things. It can be in terms of stats. It can be in terms of what kind of questions can be asked and what kind of answers you have to give. Now, in these sales enablement documents also, there are a lot of non-ethical, or I would say unethical practices, wherein because the marketing team, wants their brand to be more visible out there, they'll just ask the salesperson to, talk about this, say this more, read this out aloud, right? If they ask something like this, just tell them that at this particular time, we don't have any problem with that, even though you may be having a problem, right? So there are ways where you're dodging situations and you're manipulating it, right? So yes, that is somewhere where I would say the third point, give as much information as possible, because you are helping someone take a career changing and life changing decision.
Do you think there are any red flags that students must be aware of in terms of education marketing?
Red flags, first and foremost, even before identifying the red flags, do your research thoroughly. Then only you will be able to identify what is a red flag.
Right.
Do your research thoroughly. Understand what is it that you want. I'm not saying you'll completely know what you want, but at least try figuring out what is it that you want. Inquire, through, you have social media, you have, Google, you have their own websites of the brands, LinkedIn. You have LinkedIn to reach out to current students, reach out to your friends. They may have certain connections. Try to figure out, things on your own. After you have done your research, then when you speak with, representatives from different institutions, you will start seeing red flags on your own. Let's say, for example, somebody is saying, if somebody says we don't have any negative reviews, I'm just giving an example. So there was very recently, 2-3 days back, this is not specific to the education institutions. This is something with respect to, a visa providing agency. So, one of my friends just inquired with this agency, what is your success rate in, getting PRs for this particular country? You're like, sir, it's 100%.
It's
Because we choose people who are eligible. We don't even entertain people who are not eligible. So we will not give them any false promises. So we take only those people who we can ensure that they will get the visa. 100%.
Right.
Next day he just went on to certain portals, platforms where there are reviews about that particular company. There were so many negative reviews. Now if you're saying that you are 100%, why are there so many negative reviews about it? The next point would be, ask the right questions. When you ask the right questions, from their perspective and from your perspective, try to understand, are they giving you a satisfying answer? See, there are sales representatives who will be really good in communication. They can give you a lie as a truth. And you will not even get to know about it. So when it comes to a red flag, it is always about doing your own research. Now, when you talk about things, talk about facts, talk about statistics. When you talk about statistics is when you will get concrete answers. If you are not getting concrete answers when you are asking for statistics and figures, that is when you should think about a red flag. Because if you don't get facts and figures, then it's all gyan.
Okay. So I'll just reframe this question again, because our audience who are listening to us would want to know from your experience per se. Like, you have been in this industry, so what do you think are some common red flags that they should be aware of? You mentioned that they should do their own research, but even before they went on to this research through this podcast, what is that something that they can learn, that these are some common red flags that, if not all, but most of the education institutes, are doing such practices and they should be aware of?
So first thing would be promises which they are giving you, right? There can be promises in terms of placements, for example, 100% placement or any particular figure which they're talking about. Ask for a placement report. If they're not providing it, a red flag. Ask them if you can connect me with an alum. See, most of the institutions, they also have their own data privacy. So they may not, upfront come and give you their numbers. But you can definitely reach out to them via LinkedIn. Right? So try. In case if they're not even ready to give that, a red flag. Ask about the faculty quality. Ask them to show it to you. See, a lot of institutions will have, names. Right? A lot of institutions may not even have proper websites. A red flag. An institution which is going to provide an experience.
Names can just be contacts or maybe a guest lecture that came some 5 years ago.
Right. So on the website, right? First thing is website, their social media presence, their reviews. Right. So when you do your research, you'll get all these things. Anything which you find contrary to this is a red flag for you. Right. Then you talk about the facilities which they offer. Or I'll just give an example. They don't have their own campus. Maybe they operate out of a single building right now, and they are saying that in the next 2 or 3 months we are going to move into a new campus. Can you validate that? Depends on, again, what is it that you want. If you want to study from a campus setup and not just a standalone building where you don't get to experience that student life anymore, it's a red flag in a way for you, because it's like making you hang in between. There may or may not be a campus for you. Right? And then, a lot of facilities. When you, promise a lot of facilities, check with the current students. Ask for a campus visit. If you are not allowed to check with the current students, red flag for sure. Campus visits, a lot of institutions do campus visits. A lot of institutions, what they do, they'll allow campus visits when students are not there. Or, they won't make you meet the students.
So that you don't get to hear the negative reviews.
Yes, so that you don't hear the negative reviews for them. Go, experience. If that is there, a red flag for you.
So do you think there should be any regulations or guidelines for such industries to maintain the ethical standards?
I would say again, it would depend from institutions to institution. But if there is a standard guideline which has to be there, then it has to be from the governing body. It has to be from the digital governing body as well. Because I'll give an example: Facebook, Instagram, right? Telegram, a lot of other portals from where people can get information.
Right.
How would you stop them from being unethical? Somebody can just go there and talk anything about you. Now it's the onus is on you whether you would want to defend yourself,
Right.
or you choose not to answer. If you don't answer, people will form a perception that, oh, maybe the accusation which is made against this person or this institution is correct. If you answer, they may think, oh, they have very proactively answered it, which means this person was, wrongly accusing this. So it's all about the perception building, which has to happen. And I would say, in terms of regulation, what we can do is make people aware at the earliest possible stage. What can be done in terms of institutions taking a very proactive step wherein they reach out to, I would say, schools and undergraduate colleges. If we are talking about, for example, a management institution, reach out to undergraduate colleges, reach out to schools where you educate them beforehand, where they know what they need to do when they grow up in terms of finding the right fit for them.
Right. Cool, Jibbi. I think this has been a very valuable discussion. And lastly, is there any advice that you would want to give to marketers who are involved in the education sector? What is your advice for them to be ethical?
Please be truthful. Please be ethical. I know, and almost all the brands are guilty of doing it. But from our end, where are we heading? Where are we going? Are we the same people who once, when we did not have any media, no communication, no source of communication, where it was us going and meeting somebody in person and talking about things, and the kind of trust people showed there? Are we the same kind of people where the people now can just shower their trust upon us? Are we doing that justice to them? Are we giving them those platforms where they can rely upon? Ultimately, it's a person who's behind creating that kind of a content piece.
Or what I would say is to try to put yourself in the shoes of your consumer and then think, if you were exposed to such information which is not truthful, which may affect your career in a very bad way. So just try to put yourself in those shoes and then maybe take a decision if this is ethical or not.
So that is very true what you said, but I would guarantee that everybody definitely goes through that process. But still they figure out ways in which they can exploit those needs of your customer and go in an unethical manner. But it's a very fine line between ethics and the values which a particular organization versus you being ethical. So these are two
So
differences.
personal ethics and organizational
Personal ethics also matter. So just think from a humane perspective as well, right? Not just from a transactional perspective, but from an emotional quotient perspective as well, is what I would say.